I think, Raghu, I think we can kickstart this theme of Reimagine hybrid workforce, place, experience, and driving the organization performance. It's a great topic, and we have the right people.
Thank you. Thank you again. I've been talking non-stop. I hope there's no fatigue in my voice or with the audience in hearing me. But once again, good afternoon to all of you, and a warm welcome to all the panelists. The panel is extremely distinguished, fantastic experience, and come with a wealth of knowledge and understanding. And I personally believe the topic under discussion is so relevant, talking about reimagining the hybrid workplace experience and driving organizations' performance. To put it very simply, I would say it as managing hybrid teams in the virtual world is how I would put it. So before we get into the topic, since I have a very distinguished panel, my request is that the panelists introduce themselves briefly in terms of who they are, what is it, the organization they represent, and what is it they do, and more importantly, give their 2 bits or 2 cents in terms of what this interesting topic, which is actually in everybody's mind, especially in today's context where work is from anywhere, work place agnostic, or people working in office or the hybrid environment, and performance and deliverables cannot be compromised. This being the context, my request is each of the panelists, please introduce yourself and give your 2 cents before we get full-fledged into this discussion. Over to you. Maybe Prashant, you can start off and then we can go in any order of your preference.
Great. Thanks, Raghu. Again, thanks to Shiva and Parthoda. I think since morning I've been hearing a couple of keynotes and discussion. I just heard yours too. Great insight in how we work, across different companies and just in the same domain, right? So I think this is a very helpful summit, if I can say so. So just introducing myself, I'm Prashant. I work for Accenture in Hyderabad. I lead the workforce management team. In my past lives, I worked with Cytel, Wipro, Minix, which is now Concentrix, and Satyam BPO, which is now TCS. Full variety, the depth of experiences, and we started as an RTA and now into leadership roles, and have exposure in all the geographies that we have in workforce management and across the globe in terms of the verticals that we have. Just coming on to the topic here, the hybrid workplace. Again, it's a very exciting time that we had 1 year ago. We were at home, and then suddenly we thought, okay, COVID is gone, let's come back. And now we see, let's go back home. So I think it's going to be a reality of come and go for a while. But I think the organizations have learned that, like we have omni-channel, phone chat, voice, now we may have omni workplace, as in client location, our location, as well as at home. So it's very exciting times. I think the way we live would change. The way our children live is going to be very different from what we are doing. So excited to be a part of this panel and share my views and learn from all of you. Yeah, I think I'll pass it to one of the ladies, maybe Radhika.
Okay, hi everybody. I'm back again. This is Radhika Narangmalia. I currently work with KPMG. So I've been here about 7 years now, and before that I was with Deloitte for 5 years. These are some of the last over a decade of my experience, but I've overall about nearly 18, 19 years of experience. Mostly in the WFM space, have been somehow coincidentally landing up in jobs to set up the function. So the last 3 have been like this. So literally just started with an Excel sheet and set up the whole team. But yeah, it's very, very interesting journey. So all that I learned earlier in all my first few organizations, I actually implemented it in the next life. So very interesting topic. Happy to be a part of it. It's the reality. It is how it's going to be for the longest time. I don't know if we'll ever go back to pre-COVID times. Somewhere I feel I'm sad about it because I miss my fantastic office space and team members and lunches and tea and coffee breaks, etc. But yeah, I guess that's where we are now. I think it is the new normal, and it's not just the office or the work, but there is a third space we need, which is somewhere in between, the balance. So it'll probably be partial office, partial client, or partial home. I don't think we'll ever be at a point where it'll be completely just home or just office or that. I think those eras are gone where it can either be one way. So we have to have an amalgamation. We have to have somewhere in between balanced out approach for us to proceed in this coming years and the decade. Who knows how many more pandemics, who knows how many more viruses, but we need to make a process to stay. So yeah, I guess that's how it is. So happy to be around and share views and listen from everybody. Thanks. Prem, do you want to go next if you want?
Hi everyone, my name is Prem Singh and I'm currently representing 247.ai. Got close to about 15 to 18 years of experience in workforce management across captive units, across workforce management as a service offering, across working internally within workforce management, trying to build up efficiencies, setting up workforce management teams and practices across various organizations. My previous roles, I worked with American Express, iGate, Mercedes-Benz, and currently with 247.ai. On this particular topic about hybrid workspaces, I think if we were to go back in time, probably about a year and a half back, and if we were to retrace our steps back and have a discussion on the same topic on hybrid workspace, I think the discussion would more be centered around the challenges which a hybrid model would come up with. We would only be talking about there would be challenges regarding data integrity, cyber security issues. How do we go ahead and make it happen? And those really were the discussions. But today, a year and a half later, we have actually implemented those models with increased agility. And it's been amazing the way most of the organizations, in fact, all of the organizations have actually deployed. I think within a time span of about 24 to 48 hours, with least impact to businesses, this whole model was adopted. Things were turned around. The disruption which happened to the business once the lockdown 1.0 was announced was very minimal. So it's been an amazing journey as we have evolved. And today we are actually talking about how we further evolve this hybrid model and not really how we're on talking about what those challenges could be. So I'm happy to be here and share my views on this topic. Hand over to Andrew.
Thanks, Prem. G'day, everyone. I'm obviously an Australian. However, I've worked 20 years in human resources, and for about 15 years of that time, I've been based in Japan, Singapore, and the US, and for a large part of that time in Japan. My last HR job was as Vice President of Human Resources for Hitachi Johnson Controls. Now I'm actually running a solar business back in Australia. And my thoughts, I share my esteemed colleagues' thoughts on the way that the hybrid workforce has come about. It's been such a rapid shift and one that for many organizations was largely seamless. And I think that was seamless because for the best part of 15 years, we all had the technology to enable a hybrid workforce. We just weren't doing it in many instances. So if there is any silver lining from the COVID pandemic, it is that so many organizations have rediscovered the technology that that was implemented to bring about a work from home revolution, but which never came about until we were forced in many respects to use it. So I think it's a very exciting time, and I think hybrid workforce is definitely here to stay. I think we just need to be conscious of some of the pain points that it can produce in a workforce in terms of culture and cohesion, and come up with leadership tools and managerial tools for addressing those challenges. Thank you. Francia, would you like to go next?
Sure. First of all, I'm glad to be part of today's summit and leadership forum. So thank you, Shiva, for organizing this event. I am Francia Salas. I'm based here in the Philippines. I am the head of the contact center of Manulife. I've been supporting contact center operations for more than 15 years. So today's topic posed a very interesting theme, most especially for organizations managing contact centers. There's definitely pros and cons with this model. So this will be a very interesting topic, and I'm happy to share my insights, particularly managing large contact center operations supporting a hybrid model.
Thank you, and thanks for getting this opportunity to be part of this panel. I work with Infosys. I lead the talent supply chain for the Infosys Asia Pacific region. So I'm currently based out of Australia. So I've been in this workforce planning profession for the last 12 years, out of which 10 years has been with Infosys, handling various roles in the corporate workforce planning as well as in the region-wise workforce planning sectors. So coming to this topic of hybrid workplace. So the interesting word which comes to my mind when I think about hybrid workplace is basically the word phygital, which is basically a combination of physical and digital workplace. So when we say about hybrid, it is neither physical nor digital, but the workplace of the future would be a combination of both the physical aspects as well as the digital aspects. So that is what we all would be discussing about in this panel, and the entire discussion, I think, will be revolving around the direction, like how do we integrate both these aspects together into that. Like when we say digital, it can be the personal digital aspects as well as the shared digital aspects, like personal, like the work which I am personally committed to do, as well as a team, what is that I am supposed to deliver. So the integration of all these aspects, I think that makes the concept of hybrid workplace beautiful, and looking forward for the interactions from the experienced panelists and more takeaways from that. Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Once again, as I indicated at the start of the session, we have a very diverse, very highly experienced people from across the globe. And that's why perspectives of each one of them, the organizations that represent, the experiences they come with, and the perspectives will be so different, so meaningful, and so relevant. But before we get in headlong into the topic, I'm just recollect what Radhika said, that she's missing her chai parties, her lunches, her interactions. And this was just about a year and a half ago. And these spaces, in my view, provided us with a very good supportive environment, which was information rich and an always on environment. It is in your face, which was there, the cooler talk, walking the corridors, stepping out for lunch. I think all of this was a way of life. We had a constant flow of interaction, social meetings about what is happening with the colleagues. And this also meant that as managers, I don't think we had to go the extra mile to see what was going on, because somehow the information would come through. And therefore, it would become that much more easier. Or if people were working in a big hall, if there is one particular person who was not pulling his socks or pulling his weight, we had the neighbor, the next person, the next cubicle walking across to help them. And today, we are in an environment where people are working remotely, where colleagues are limited to viewing one another. That is, if they switch on the camera. And that is a situation we rely on, the short periods of the Zoom meetings, and making inferences about the mood, what is the performance, what are motivation levels, from the very little evidence they have. from their understanding from these meetings. Believe me, at least 20-25%, even after I tell them to switch on the camera, would do it with very great reluctance. So in normal meetings across, this was the SOP, if I may say so, where only the persons with the camera on would be a minority. And that's the environment we are dealing with. So in this virtual world, in my understanding, we rely primarily on the tone of mails, the voice on video calls, facial expressions if they are on the camera, and second-hand information passed on from others. And therefore, as humans, the tendency is, in my view, to build on impressions through these not secondary but third and fourth sources. And it becomes that much more of a challenge of understanding or plugging the gaps, how to join the dots and make decisions and judgments. So in the environment with which we are operating in, opportunities for misunderstanding or misinterpretations grow manifold in this virtual setting. And if these elements are not managed well enough, then there would be tensions, there would be challenges, relationships tend to get damaged, and misunderstandings which arise will impede the team's progress, and probably one may not actually meet the goals one sets in. So in my view, there are 6 factors which come into play. And there is a research institute in Amsterdam, which is the Center for Evidence-Based Management. They took up a rapid assessment, evidence-based assessment, including a critical review of 750 academic studies. And I believe they conducted it across the globe. And what they understood was that they looked at specific issues that arose, what are the filters that are there, and how or what is it COVID-19 is impacting home working or remote working. And the research, surprisingly or not very surprisingly, I can use any one of those words, that factors which impact community performance in traditional or the way we ran businesses in the past also impacted now, but more so. So therefore, the areas which they believed from a human angle, which come into play, where people work virtually or in a hybrid environment, factors which came into play in their view was one, was social cohesion. 2, in terms of the perceived support they received from the supervisors, information sharing and communication, vision and goal clarity, which is there amongst teams, which came up in the previous talk too, areas of communicating outside of the teams and with external stakeholders, and the most important aspect of building trust. I would not go on. I'm sure the panelists will touch on, highlight on each one of these aspects. But let me quickly run and reach out to the panelists. I thought that I will ask Prashant, because the first question in this panel, taking into account remote working, virtual teams, people working in office, the hybrid work environment, people asked to come to work, people would like to come to work and working from office, people working from home because they feel it more comfortable and safe, and people who have no choice but continue to be working at home, I think are all aspects which come into play. And as an employee, I think because he or she is the key factor in the business meeting their goals, in the customer being serviced, and more importantly, if not being taken care of, the talent, the employee would actually walk off, because opportunities today for, like in the past, for persons who are qualified are many. especially where it is location agnostic. So, Prashant, my question to you is, how is it as an organization or as a leader or as a manager? What is it or how is it you maintain fairness between those who are working from office and from those who are working at home? What is it or what is your context and other examples which you face, challenges which you faced, and how is it you're handling those situations?
Great. Thanks, Raghu. I think that's a very interesting question, and you know, something that really does not have a clear yes or a no kind of an answer, right? And with me and my team, whenever we are faced with such questions, we actually look back to our experience as to how did we handle fairness in the past, right? Though at this point the situation is we are working from home versus working from office. In the previous thing, if I take an analogy, we used to have people working over weekends versus working over weekdays, or working in night shifts, working in day shifts. So how did we maintain the fairness there, right? We've kind of had systems put in place such as shift bids, sometimes rotation rules, sometimes policies saying that, you know, every X weeks you get, uh, a weekend off or something like that. So one of the aspects is, framing these rules for fairness. Whether rotational rules or whether you want to give the choice. And I think at this point, pretty much all organizations are leaning towards a choice-based fairness, that, people are being given a choice that, would you want to return back to work? Would you want to continue to stay at home? And we are seeing a variety of responses too, right? There are people who are working from home, and I think there's a new category of people who are working from hometown, right? In Philippines, people are in their provinces now. In India, they are in the hills. Some of them in the beaches. So I think that flexibility is what people are seeking. And while we are ensuring the fairness of, those who are in the city so have to come to work versus those who are remote, uh, there would be an element of policy that is needed. But at the same time, I think the expectation is, we need to kind of look at the personal preferences also. And this could uh, be perhaps right from the beginning, at the time of hiring itself, uh, being communicated and shared. So the way I think we should be approaching is, take what we have learned from our, work at office experience. How did we manage rotations? How did we manage, weekends? How did we manage shifts? I think that same thing, the concept can be applied here. So that's my personal view, Raghu.
Yeah, I think I hear you say choice and flexibility, I think, plays a significant role. And in the past, pick up and principles of people working in shifts, people working during weekends. I understand, but there are no easy answers, because
Correct.
sometimes people don't have a choice. I think that's the challenge which people face. But I think there needs to be a framework or a policy, as you said, which will take these aspects into account when we build up a point of view in terms of what makes things, how to make things fair from an employee context. I think that's great. Thanks, Prashant. I think my next question I will pose to Prem. Prem, in our conversations yesterday, I think one significant point that came up, which I also stressed in my previous keynote, is the role of technology. Because ultimately, for people to be working 24/7, virtually, in hybrid teams, remote locations. So what is the role of technology? How has it evolved? How have organizations actually geared up and prepared, especially where it's the any place, any time, and no quarter given or taken, especially from a customer, because the customer expects services be delivered without fail. And how is it you ensure there is connectivity, there's confidentiality, there's compliance without compromising on performance and productivity? What is your take on that?
So in fact, when I just look back, I mean, about a year back, I think when the lockdown started, I think the immediate priority for all of us was, let's probably get systems shipped across. Let's get people set up on the workstations, and let's start operationalizing the teams. Uh, Over the years, we've actually had a lot of different organizations have evolved very differently in how they have imbibed technology and being able to monitor agent performance or being able to monitor compliance or being able to monitor agent productivity. There have been different stages of evolution which different organizations have adopted over the years. But what's been amazing over the last year and a half is the speed at which organizations have executed, the agility at which technologies have actually been deployed, could be off the shelf products which companies have brought, could be in-house development, which robust software tools which companies have actually developed and deployed very rapidly to measure agent performance, to measure agent productivity from a compliance standpoint. In fact, and that's something which is also has to be evolving. In fact, just to kind of give an example, when we started off with this, so with a particular client, it started off with us having been able to get the agents starting to work as soon as we could. From there, the discussions evolved on, we actually want to see if that's the right agent who's actually working. So we started evolving the technology to be able to take screenshots or picture images at particular times where the agent is working. A couple of cases came about because everybody is smart. People will always find ways to beat the system. So a couple of instances came up where somebody was impersonating the employee and working on his or her behalf. And then everybody got together to think about if these are the challenges, these are real-time challenges which are happening. How do we go ahead and avoid that? And then the discussion started about, can we now go ahead and actually have the entire live monitoring of an agent on video when he's actually there? Tools were developed, technologies has been evolved, it's being tested out. Imagine the computing power that would actually be needed for you to be able to process those images, audit those images or those video screens, because that's it's not possible for somebody to be able to auditing those. It has to be automated. There needs to be AI which needs to be coming in if there are any deviations, and also kind of being more creative and trying to find out ways in which people could go ahead and beat the system as well. And over the last year, that's where I've seen how technology has evolved in enabling the hybrid workplace to happen. There are going to be processes which are going to be extremely critical. I would not say probably there's a relaxation on some of the data security regulations, but there are sensitive back office processes which need constant monitoring. And today, that is where technology is really evolving. The other aspect where technology, I think, is going to play a very critical role is in tomorrow's world. Could be a work from office versus a work from home. Could be a model where people are going to be working for 2 days from office, 3 days from home. There are going to be multiple work environments which an individual will have to get used to. Uh, how effectively can we actually build virtual reality collaboration tools which give the sensibility or give the sense of actually having working in an office, aligning with the same teams, but and despite all of it, also enabling you to be working in a hybrid kind of a setup. That's going to be the future, and I think that's going to be where a lot of those teams are working about. On the other side, the other challenges which are there, which still need to kind of evolve, is in terms of the advantages of a hybrid workforce is a hub and spoke model. But that's one of the biggest advantages which comes about when we're talking about having a hybrid work model. Uh, you could actually reach out to tier 2, tier 3 cities from a talent acquisition standpoint. Uh, Another case, an example for a particular geography where you probably had about 800 FTs is what the strength of the geography was. You were able to ramp up 200 or 300 FTs in about a month and a half. All that you had to do was upgrade some of your technology infrastructure at the back end to support the growth. But that is about it. In a normal operating environment, if you were to execute a project where you probably have a headcount of 800 and you're ramping up to 200, the time which you take only in being able to identifying real estate, because no organization will run with excess real estate, but to execute a project, to ramp up a project where you are probably increasing your headcount by about 20-25%, without having to factor in the real estate component and the speed and eligibility which you've been able to do that, is how this model, and this is what it's going to be. Things which we still need to kind of work upon is how do we go ahead and strengthen cybersecurity breaches. There are going to be different innovative ways which are going to come out. How do we think out of the box? How do we strengthen those cybersecurity breaches which are there? From an infrastructure standpoint, as we're expanding into tier 2, tier 3 cities, while there are cost advantages which organizations are getting in, but there's that investment also which is going to be coming in to make sure that you're adhering to compliance of those. So the connectivity, internet connectivity, broadband availability across tier 2, tier 3 cities, those are some of the challenges which will come about, which we will need to factor in. But also, as we evolve, we also need to constantly think about how we strengthen the technology, how we get in more artificial intelligence in, and how we avoid some of the breaches which can come in so that we can strengthen those. So those are the things that we need to kind of further look upon, in my opinion.
Interesting. I just thought I will prod you a bit more when you spoke about live monitoring. That's pretty interesting, but where does one draw the line? I can understand even when you're working out of offices, there could be certain challenges where people say that there's an invasion of their privacy. And here, where the work is work from home or virtual working. Any thoughts on that in terms of, have you looked at it? Because especially organizations which operate across the globe will be a lot more challenged in terms of what is being spoken about. So just pushing you along a bit more so that context is clearly explained.
Yeah, that's an interesting context to bring in. And there's a very thin line between being able to intrude into the privacy, which you would do in a work from home versus a work from office. And it's a very thin line. And at times you are probably intruding into that space, which you probably might not have done in a work from office. But it's about you being able to balance potential breaches which could be happening and the impact to that versus to what extent are you intruding onto this. It's got its own pros and cons to it. Depends upon a lot of factors to what extent you may want to do it. Maybe you might want to probably put it up on the criticality of the processes, the risk which a breach could cause, a potential breach could cause, and being able to balance that for a client versus the employee is a very, very thin line to to cross or distinguish between that. But that's something which which all organizations will have to think through and tread very, very carefully. To what extent can it go?
Okay, I know it's quite interesting and also extremely challenging. As you said, a very thin line divides what can be monitored and where, or what will be construed as invasion of privacy. But I think the jury is still out there in terms of the approach. But I think it has to evolve. Thanks, Prem. I think I'll now ask Radhika the next question. That she's worked in a number of organizations and, as she said, started from scratch with Excel sheets and also consulting probably a few organizations. What is the biggest challenge you would see or face, that is in terms of imbibing clarity on visions and goals? And how does one actually work on that factor, especially when teams are remote, when people join the organization new, or work from home is the norm across geographies? So what is it, or how is it that virtual teams, or your teams which would not even have visited physical offices or met their bosses, what and how is your organization and the organizations you consult with work on this aspect, imbibing clarity on vision and goals?
Yeah, thanks, Raghu. So, of course, very, very hard. In a conventional world, we would have thought that's not happening, and you have to have multiple rounds of discussions, and we take our vision and goal very, very seriously. Okay, so we tie our vision of every individual to the team, and then to the business unit, and then to the overall firm. So it was obviously not so easy, but having said that, just like how we switch. It was like an on-off switch when we went from working in office to virtual completely. But thankfully, technology was there, and thankfully, it just took them literally a few hours to say, okay, fine, from everybody from today is going to work from home. 26,000 people of us sitting in India were like, oh my God. But having said that, one of the things that we did to probably increase our trust factor with our team and communicate a lot more about our vision and goals was to increase transparency. Now, that happens only and only when you over communicate rather than under communicate, to be honest, especially with the teams. I literally told everybody that there is no concept of under communication anymore. You need to connect more, talk more, meet more, and please be on videos. But more than that, I think what we really started doing, and like you said, there were many people who had never visited office. There were a lot of new hires who joined us during the pandemic and have never met either of us. We're a large team now, and nobody had met each other. But we did a few things to get them connected to the firm. So we gave them, like, the first week, we trained them not on work, not on the tools and not on processes and stuff, but on what we are, what do we do, who are we, and why, and the passion that we bring, and the goal of the firm, and what is the purpose of bringing us in. So it was really not hands-on work related. It was more about character, more about our lineage and what we really do. So that way, we really caught them young, and we invested time in grooming them based on our experience. And also, of course, then started the training. But we also tried our level best to keep one buddy of the new hire who was an old timer, an experienced person. So that person shared their experiences. One of the few people told me, a lot of people, youngsters especially, who we hired recently, come and ask, is there growth in this firm? What is going to happen here? Are we going to be asked to go after some time? Does the firm really care about people? I mean, these anxious questions, which typically you could not have when you see face to face and all that. Anxious, really anxious youngsters. So we realized we have to cater to that first, and work will keep happening. But that is what we went to. A few other things that we did, which I think really worked in our favor. So we used to connect every month to just do business updates within the workforce management team, between the resource management team. So we're not talking how's your work, how's my work, nothing like that. We are exchanging our experiences with our businesses to the other members of the team, because each one handles a certain service line. So all of us got to know what's happening with everybody, because otherwise you'll end up thinking, oh, I'm the one who's working so much, I'm the one who's bogged down, I don't know what is happening, etc. So we got, once a month we do this diligently. We have blocked everybody's calendar. We just get together and talk about each other's, we give updates of what's happening with our lives in our workspace, so that there is transparency, another very, very important thing to build trust. And then once a quarter, we block 3 hours on everybody's calendar and play virtual games. That's all we do. We just don't talk about work. We literally every quarter come up with new games, and we keep wondering what we do, how more. And the best thing is that we have different people take ownership of planning that event for once a quarter. So a lot of new hires, they're also young and full of energy. They come up with these unbelievable, brilliant ideas of games. But this is what breaks our silo of, oh man, I'm always working and I don't know what's happening and who's taking care of me, will my manager even know me? And I made it a rule that anybody who's talking or presenting has to be on camera, otherwise they're not presenting. So go if you need your time to do whatever you want to do, get yourself or do whatever. And everybody's at home. Nobody cares about t-shirts or casuals or whatever. Nobody cares about that. Just be yourself, but come on screen and talk. So that's a rule. They don't talk to me without a camera on. So yeah, that really helps. I mean, we have such a deep connect one-on-one with each other. But the last thing that I personally did was that I connect with my managers and my assistant managers and one level below them. Once a month, I put it on my calendar because I think they need to know what I'm thinking of, and I need to know what they are thinking of. So I need the feedback from the floor, and they need to know what's happening with me. So we have a very, I mean, I know it sounds like how much time am I spending on my calendar, but it is totally worth it. It could be 5 minutes, it could be 1 hour. It doesn't matter. It's totally worth it. So that builds our trust and that builds our base for the day.
So Radhika, I'll push you a bit more. So how different or how similar is it when you're working in the past? Or all what you said applied even then? So what is similar and what are nuances or changes which needs to be highlighted?
The funny part is that we have a lot of sundowners, okay? So we all get our glasses in the once a month and sit with each other virtually in sundowners. The only difference is I'm not paying the bills anymore. So that's the only difference. But no, on a serious note, see, earlier we used to still have a lot of connect. We always were very high on communication, but we were sitting in one room, even though we have offices across the city, but everybody in that office was sitting in one conference room. So we had at least 10 people or at least 8 people in each room, and there was so much communication, so much interaction, and there was so much support. Like you said, the person sitting next door, if one is feeling low, the other person will push you up. Here, there was nothing like that. I mean, there was really, if you pinged somebody, very good. If somebody pinged you, very good. Otherwise, you were all on your own. To break that, we had to do this. We had to do over communication, and I very consciously call it over communication because that now became the benchmark of communication. So it was very different, yeah. That way.
Thanks, Radhika. Very insightful. Now I'll request Andrew. Comes across, works in a different geography and different from the origin he comes from or the ethnicity he comes from. And we are seeing a lot of challenges in terms of social isolation. So whether it's in the West, whether it's in Africa, whether it's in Asia, or whether it's APAC, Australia, Japan, wherever, I think the context of social isolation is extremely strong. You open the newspaper, at least a quarter of page talks about the agony aunt, talks about depression, talks about people wanting to do harm themselves or losing interest, depressed, all of that come into play. And this is increasingly being, it has become a reality. So having said that, what is your view? What is your experience? And that currently you are, I think, operating in APAC and you are from the West. So what is the challenge you see? What is it organizations are doing? In your experience, are there areas where we can do better? Have there been any unfortunate events? Or have there been success stories of how to overcome social isolation and the impact thereof? Andrew?
Yeah, thanks, Rag. And I think Radhika touched on some of the challenges in her sharing just now, and I wrote down some of her solutions. You know, the making sure people are on screen when they're presenting, and virtual games, which I'd love to hear more about, and definitely sundowners. But the reality is, you know, the virtual working and particularly virtual working where the vast majority of the work is work from home is socially isolating. There are tremendous benefits to this hybrid model where you know, Prem talked about being able to source talent from tier 2 and 3 cities. Well, you know, there's world sourcing in many respects. I was part of a team where 13 of us were in 13 different countries, but when I was part of that world source team, which was incredibly powerful pre-COVID, we got together every month, and it meant we racked up an incredible number of frequent flyer miles, something like 300 to 400,000 a year. But even seeing each other every month, there was still a feeling of isolation. It's not the same seeing your colleagues once a month physically as going to the office every day. And with COVID travel restrictions, where you're not seeing your colleagues physically for over a year, you know, it's far from ideal. I think you mentioned culture. I think Japan and India are both very high context cultures, so we do read each other's body language to interpret how our manager or how our colleagues really feeling. I think Americans perhaps are a bit more hierarchical, less contextual. So I think my observation is a lot of Japanese people have really struggled with working from home. It was never as popular in Japan as it is in other countries anyway. I think, you know, many Japanese, of course, are famous for their workaholic tendencies of being in the office from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. But a large part of that long workday was socializing. Japanese workplaces have a lot of social and social interaction opportunities, and now I know from many of my colleagues there that they've had team members who've gone into serious bouts of depression from working from home and being cut off from that daily social interaction and the inevitable after work drinking that goes on, the work organized events, coffee dates, sporting activities, corporate social responsibility opportunities. So it's a huge challenge, and I think that once we return to a more stable situation with COVID, I think many employees are actually looking forward to going to the office more often than they have been. There's a lot of leaders and executives angsting over the fact that they want their employees to come back, and they're worried they might lose their employees if they take away the tremendous flexibility of working from home. But I think there's an equal number of employees who actually want to get back to the office a few days a week at least. So I have a feeling there's a lot of angst on both sides, but come the day where our governments and our health advisors allow us all to be going backwards and forwards on a regular basis, I think it'll be embraced, and most people will view it quite positively. I think, you know, in terms of tips for addressing social isolation, none of these things are particularly new, and again, Radhika touched on some of them. It's about maintaining the same cadence you did when you were back in the office, making sure that you don't brush off one-on-ones. In particular, I think when I was managing a remote team around the world, I almost I did treat all the one-on-ones as events that could only be cancelled due to a crisis. So I as a leader took those meetings as some of the most important meetings each week, and because when you aren't able to have all the contextual benefit of face-to-face, you want to hear how you're doing, and I think it's really important that we keep up those routines even if they are virtual. I think also thinking a bit outside of the box, so to speak. If you've got work colleagues who are working from home in the same neighborhood or suburb or city that you're in, I think reaching out to those people to have casual coffee catch-ups, if your current COVID situation permits it, can be incredibly valuable. And I think, you know, managers need to facilitate that and encourage that as well. And of course, making sure that as colleagues and managers, we're asking people how they're doing. I think it's often easy to tell if someone's struggling anyway, even in this virtual environment, because their work might be slipping, their attendance in meetings might be slipping, they might not be turning on their camera as often as they used to. These are all cues to really prompt you as a colleague or a leader to ask your fellow team members, are they doing okay? Are they struggling with isolation? Do they need you to help them connect with people in their community or with their work colleagues who are in the same community? And then again, Radhika mentioned it, those coming up with clever ways to socialize, having scheduled social occasions that are not business related, that are really just sharing the sort of conversations you would have had in the office around the water cooler anyway. Things that are going well, things that are not going well, you know, things that you're proud of. I think all of these things can make a difference, making sure that you continue to recognize people's birthdays, milestones, you know, and you know, celebrating whichever sporting teams that you follow. So I again, per my opening comments, I really don't think there's a way to perfectly avoid this social isolation. I just think we all have to work harder virtually to try and offset as much of it as we can, and all look forward to the day when we can have that physical interaction more often.
Thanks, Andrew. I think what stands out for me is the need to reach out and the personal touch, especially people who are in the same vicinity, same town. And I think in addition to all that was spoken, I think this, because ultimately people crave for company, crave for a personal connect. I think so important. Thank you for your perspectives. Rogers,
Raghu, sorry
yeah.
to interrupt you. 12 minutes to conclude the question, sorry, the session. 12 more minutes to go here.
Yeah, I know. It's so exciting, so I thought I'll not stop people in between. So, Rogers, you work for a 250,000 strong organization. You have people from across the globe working. So how do you, in this current environment, ensure social cohesion, build unity of purpose, and integrate people as one team? What is it that you do differently so that within the organization and connecting with external stakeholders, what is it that you do to reassure them that it is the same team, the same organization, the service is similar to the best of what the customer expects? How or what is it you do differently, Rajesh?
So if you see, before the times of COVID, we were around a workforce around 250,000 employees, for which 99% of our employees have been working from offices. And from that model, we have shifted to a place where 97% of our employees are working from home, which is a huge scale, I would say, for a base of around 250,000 employees. So how did we achieve this actually? So it was not an easy task to make this happen, when majority of our clients whom we are operating are in financial services, in healthcare, who requires high amount of data security to be enabled, and we can't never imagine a situation where we take this operation out from the so-called airtight airtight offices where the data is highly secure with the secured networks to the homes of the people actually, where the banks are sharing data, the financial institutions' data are in the laptops of people who were working from home. So the trust factor was one important thing that had to be created, and I think the frontline staff, which includes the client partners and the sales staff and the senior delivery folks, made that task really a wonderful one by talking to the clients, taking them into confidence, telling that we have all the security systems enabled in across Infosys to make sure that your data is secure. The work will be completely confidential as it was done earlier. There will not be any data breaches. And I think that kind of relationship building was very important. And that didn't happen all of a sudden. I think this was the effort, this was the relationship which they were able to build over the past many years, and the effect of which could be seen reflecting in the sudden work from home movement that we have seen actually. So all our clients had agreed to move the data into the work from home environment. And so far in the last, I think, 1.5 years, we have never seen, except for minor few cases, other than that, we have never seen any data breaches happening, any security incidents when our 97% of our employees are working from home. So I think the creation of the trust was the first important thing that we were able to achieve in moving the work out from offices to the home. So that is first thing. And secondly, when we look at from the employees' point of view, yes, majority of a workforce you see are in the age group of 25 to 30 actually. So that is where our workforce comprises of almost 60% of our employees are in that, 50% of our employees are in the age group. So when those employees are a category of people who would like to come to the office, interact with the colleagues, go out for parties after the work, so suddenly having them moving into a work from home model where they get very less opportunity to be in office, to interact with other people. So that is something which was difficult to manage in the initial times, especially for the managers. Now, as Radhika's and other panelists have mentioned, like communication was one of the most important aspects that we relied upon. Like, so earlier there was situations, there can be instances where they can go and talk to the colleagues, they can talk up to the managers and look up to the managers and see for advices on what needs to be done. So today that is not available. That physical presence is not there. So how do we manage that? So the managers need to be equipped more to communicate with the people. So when you communicate, when I say communicate, we have come across two kinds of people. So there are people who are good in building up relationship with other people. For them, moving into virtual thing was not a difficult thing because they just go and interact with the people, even if it's virtual. They go and interact with the managers, they go and interact with the different team members. So that was okay for them. But people who are not good in building relationships, especially those who are shy when they are online to talk. So how do we manage them actually? They just completely get cut off from the online space actually. So for those kind of people, the managers themselves took initiative to motivate them to when they are in the meeting. So I have seen across cases where managers ping these employees personally and tell them that, okay, so now you go and speak. So without anybody knowing, they are encouraging these people to speak up in these meetings actually, which was something which was not happening in a very say in a physical space where managers cannot tell that, okay, now it's your opportunity. So now, so that is the kind of thing I have seen managers doing to motivate these people to come up, to speak up, to share their ideas. So even though you are in the four black boxes of the square screens that you see virtually, but I see that and the kind of the autonomy that we have given to the managers. I think there are rules and regulations within the organization. Yes, definitely is there. But beyond that, we have empowered our managers to take decisions on this spot, to give more rewards to the employees, to make sure that their constant interactions are happening with them, to reward them for the work that they're doing. So that rewards and recognition has also plays an important role in this time of working from home. I think we have seen more number of rewards and recognitions being given to the employees. In that way, they are being motivated. So rewards are being sent directly to the homes of the people. The families are being given appreciation letters for being a part of this journey. So I think it is a collective effort that we have done, managing our stakeholders, managing our employees, managing our shareholders. So that's the way in which we have imbibed the culture of I think work from home, hybrid work environment at Infosys.
Thanks, Rajesh. Thanks. I know there's so much more to share. And I'll be unfair to Francia if I don't give her the time. And there's so much more to understand and ask. But Francia, my question to you is that all of this is being asked for, all of that is being spoken about. But how are we equipping our managers, our supervisors? Are they being trained, equipped to handle the situation? Are there any specific examples which you think you can share? And how does the manager and the teams ensure the information sharing is seamless? That's one part. I would have loved to ask how things happen in Manila. That's only if I get the time from the organizers. But I think we need one of the most important stakeholders, the manager, the supervisor. What is being done in this context? How are we equipping her to make this a seamless experience?
Absolutely. So I love what Radhika shared earlier on how to ensure teams are supported on a hybrid model. For me, to ensure the success of hybrid teams, employees will need to be trained to maximize their remote or hybrid work tools. To enable this model, digital learning platforms makes training accessible for all employees. Whether they're in the office or at home, we need to deploy digital learning tool to ensure our hybrid teams are receiving that training that they need. You know, there's a lot of digital learning platforms that is available and accessible online, and that can be shared even in the internet. There should be a complete understanding as well and clarity of our manager's role supporting on a hybrid environment. Our managers will need to manage relationships, especially in this current setup. They need to ensure pace and quality are not compromised and play a central role in connecting individuals to each other and to the organization. With this setup, we need true people leaders. As we transition to the hybrid setup, we must invest in manager training, focusing on skills in delegation, personal resiliency, and leading in uncertainty. For myself, I've also invested on virtual training since I am supporting remote teams and operations, and I've seen a rise in online trainings as well since last year. And the most common trainings and topics I've seen evolves around working effectively together from a distance, trainings around upskilling for hybrid teams for leaders, and solidify team trust across hybrid teams. It is also important that we set clear expectation and accountability as early. We need to make it clear to all of our employees that both work at home and work on site, they can work together productively, and they know what everybody's doing. As part of this, you need to run, for me, running operations daily or weekly team meetings to ensure that the entire team is calibrated on what is going on, and share the progress regularly to the entire team, and even involving our stakeholders in virtual team meetings or town hall session to open that communication to share updates on what's going on with the company. And lastly, I know someone from our panelists also mentioned about fair rewards and benefits. For me, it is also very important. If we offer rewards that is inaccessible to work at home workers, you need to at least give them alternatives that they can feel broadly equivalent to those who are working on site employees that they can enjoy. That's it.
Thank you. It's so insightful in terms of the perspectives shared by each of the panelists, representing who's who in the business world and also from across the globe. So I think a fair representation in terms of what is it that people need to be doing. Ultimately, it goes back to the basics, backed by technology, resolve of leadership to ensure aspects of cohesion, supervisory, equipping supervisors, aspects of information sharing and communications, and how or what is it we imbibe from day zero in terms of the vision and goal clarity. I think it's been an exciting and insightful session. I am personally indebted to each one of you all. Every time I've heard you all speak during our pre-meetings and now, you have brought up newer nuances. Thank you. Also thank the organizers for giving us an opportunity and helping and enabling who's who from the industry to share their perspectives on this topic, which is so relevant now in current times. Thank you once again. I'm sure there'll be lots of questions and answers to be given, but the fact is we run out of time, and we can definitely connect offline, and we will respond in case there are any questions that need to be handled. I hope that's fine, Dr. Shiva. The panel is ready to actually take on questions, but the call is yours.
Yeah, probably we could take quick questions if there are any. Audience, do we have any questions to the panelists? You could raise your hand. I have one question from Kaustav. Yeah, Kaustav, you're free to ask a question. We'll take one question.
Thanks.
Yes,
go ahead.
yes,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
Hi. Thanks to all the panelists for sharing your thoughts. I think this was a very informative and knowledgeable session, and I personally enjoyed listening to the entire proceedings. And Raghu, thanks for leading a wonderful session. My question, primarily to Prem, but I think it is for everybody, is that especially in these days of virtual working, in some sense, Raghu asked this question, where do we draw the line? I think personally that when we talk about productivity, but try to ensure productivity through policing measures, somewhere the essence of humanity in human resources is lost. So, I do understand from an organizational standpoint that there has to be a line drawn somewhere, and we need to be able to ensure outcomes for the organization. But perhaps I come from a different point of view or a different thought stream in human resources, that we shouldn't lose sight of the human aspect of human resources while we are achieving the organization's objectives. So any responses or thoughts to that statement?
In fact, I completely agree. And I said it's a very thin line between being able to, not going overboard with the policing. And I'm a firm believer policing is not something which anyways helps. There always has to be that human element. And that's where I think the challenge also is coming in as when we're moving into a hybrid model or with working virtually is how do you, are there ways where how do you express that human touch? I mean, probably in a physical environment, when you were in office, you could probably go up, have a conversation, have your sutta breaks, your chai breaks, have those conversations. Your emotions could be expressed. But in a virtual world, how do you go about doing that? That's one piece. And it's a very thin balance between driving what the organization outcomes are going to be versus looking at things from a very different perspective. It's a very thin line. Case by case, I think those calls will have to be taken, and that will have to evolve as we go on.
If I can just add to what Prem said, right, and bring in a bit of a personal angle that through my reading. See, the way we take ethics for granted, right? That someone who's joining us is going to come with ethics, right? In the same way, I think in this hybrid world, trust would have to evolve into that. That everyone has to have that element that they are trustworthy. Only then they will be employable. That's the way, at least I look at it, because definitely technology can help to build the trust and safeguard the trust and security that the organizations need. But I think just the way ethics and compliance kind of trust is a way of compliance also, right? So that's going to be like a given. That has to be like a personal thing that every individual brings in onto the table when they join an organization. I think that's the future for sure. So yes, thin lines are there, but trust is a given now. You have to have it as an individual.
Yeah, I agree, Prashant. And I think at the end of the day, the outcomes will either be there or they won't be there. So the need for such close supervision isn't entirely necessary. If a project is accomplished, if the work is done, how the employee achieved that and when and where they did it shouldn't really matter.
True, agree, absolutely.
Thanks, Kaustav. Great question. Ultimately, I hear you when you say the HR head or the organization should not forget the human angle while implementing and coming up with all of what technology can do and where there's monitoring and things like that happen. But thank you. I think, as Prem said, there's a thin line that divides. But as leaders, are we aware, are we conscious of that aspect when we implement different mechanisms is what will count. Thank you once again. Thanks for bringing out that nuance very starkly. Thank you once again. Shiva.
Yeah, thanks, Kosa, for the very interactive, very good question. Thanks, Raghu, for your keynote speech. It was really depth and width and very insightful and also amazing moderation. Thank you so much. Thanks, Prashant, Prem, Andrew. Rogers, Radhika, and Francia, for taking your time and spending time with us, for sharing your knowledge. It has been very encouraging and huge takeaways from your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you. Thank you. Thanks, panel.
Thank you.